Well, that music means it's time for another episode of Just Can't Not. I'm your host, Chris Lindstrom, and this is part of our preview for the Pittsburgh Fringe Festival. I know this is outside of our typical Rochester and surrounding area content, but the Fringe is universal, and we're thrilled to partner with the Pittsburgh team for their 13th year running from March 19th to the 28th. To learn more about all of the shows and get tickets, go to pittsburghfringe.org. Tickets cap out at only $20 and an entire event is $150. So make sure to go get your tickets today and join the action over on Penn Ave. And I have a guest. Guest, why don't you introduce yourself?
Awesome, thank you. Hi there, my name is Cam Webb. I'm one of the artists that's featured in this year's Pittsburgh Fringe Festival. I'm a director, so I have a company called Orange Steel Theater Company, and our show is called Doohickey.
Yeah, and the shows are over at the venue's called Assemble, and that's shows on March 20th, the 21st, the 26th, and the 28th, all at 8 o'clock. Tickets are $12, and if you're a student, it's all the way down to 7. So no excuse not to go out and check them out. Um, Tell me about the Orange Steel Theater Company and what are the vibes? What's the whole idea behind it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Orange Steel is to give full credit where it's due. Orange Steel is the brainchild of my creative partner, as well as just my partner in life, Sophie McClung. She's also one of the coordinators of the Pittsburgh Fringe, so she's very involved in the Fringe scene. And it was something that she really wanted to do. She wanted to get into the producing side of things, and has always had a she's an incredibly talented devised theater artist. So when the idea came around of doing a devised theater show, it was something that was like, hey, why not? Why not try it out? And so far, it's been a great experience. She's been obviously I'm very biased, but she's been a lovely producer so far.
Well, I guess say like having a talented partner in life, um, it's
Yeah.
amazing because like you would support regardless. But it's really nice when it's really easy because they're that talented. I have the same problem in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great problem to have.
Yeah. So when you say devised theater, explain what you mean by that because the Fringe has so many different angles that you can do on theater from improvisational from interaction with the audience to pure performance. How would you describe that term?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so devised is, as with so many theater things, has millions of different definitions, but part of the
Mm,
way that we define it for us is traditionally when you might think of theater, you might think of, oh, when you go into a rehearsal room, there's a script that's already been written, and we're going to rehearse that script. For our show, we had some concepts and ideas to play with, but the actual dialogue that the characters are saying, that wasn't written prior to this process. So all of the dialogue, as well as the characters themselves, have all been created by the actors in the show. As much
mm.
as me as the director, I've offered some ideas, they are just as much the writers of the piece as they are actors in the piece. Which has been really, really cool because all of the characters are so specifically tuned into each actor. It's one of those things that like no one could play uh each character because it is meant to be kind of a reflection of yourself, a la
Yeah.
sort of a D&D kind of thing.
Well, and it sounds also like kind of halfway, but in um, between like improvisation and like what Curb Your Enthusiasm does with really they set bullet points of this is where it has to go. And then
Yeah.
everybody brings their max selves to that understanding that they were chosen because they have
Yeah.
something to offer, that they have that. They are chaotic, they are aggressive, they are this, they are that, but they're allowed and you have to because there's only bullet points to
Yeah.
go where you're going.
Absolutely, yeah. Especially our show, it's a beautiful thing to have, but audiences are so variable, and since our show relies on so much, audience participation, in our mind, it didn't really make much sense to script. We script as much as we could, but it was also like, we don't wanna script everything because
Yeah.
inevitably there is going to be that random factor with so much audience participation. So very much the Curb Your Enthusiasm thing of, here's where we need to get to. How we get there is can change night to night,
Yeah.
which I think is exciting, creates a very dynamic show.
Yeah, that's very Fringe too. Like, you can have all the other things, but that interaction and that like, that idea of like, oh, we're doing this because we're going to enjoy the process, and it doesn't have to be perfect every time, that it has to be real every time
Yeah,
is the thing.
absolutely. Yeah, and I think that that's something that, our cast has been, phenomenal, just to shout them out real quick. Audrey Klein, CG Squire, Amari Shakir, Emily Loken, and Maggie McClelland, all of them, everything that they've brought to the table with their characters has been so lovely and so wonderfully crafted, and, the discoveries that they have made within those characters have been very lovely as well, and kind of unexpected. I was having a conversation with one of our cast members just a few nights ago that she was like, "I when we started this process, I could have never imagined that it would have gone the route that it did, but it was a fun way that it happened, kind of just going with the vibes."
Yeah. Is this the kind of theater that you like to, like, when you're thinking about producing? I don't know if this is your first run doing this or,
Yeah.
directing. Is this the kind of theater you enjoy as a concept? Do you like another thing? Like, what is your personal angle on all this?
Yeah, so for me personally, pretty much our entire cast, I think with the exception of maybe one cast member, we're all products of Point Park University's theater arts program, which is a school here in Pittsburgh. And one of the aspects of that program that's emphasized very heavily is devised theater.
Mm,
Um, and within that emphasis is this aspect of communal connection. And that was something for me that was very, very important, both in a theater sense and a makerspace sense, offering a space where audience members could come together and get that chance to connect, because that is what makerspaces really are inherently, are communal spaces where people are encouraged to come in, share their knowledge, share their skills. Whereas theater is often a space where, hey, here's the audience, here are the actors, and there is a line that divides us. So the idea of blending that, just made a lot of sense of like, hey, all these concepts from devised into this concept of maker spaces, which is really, those are more rooted in like the education side of things and more geared
yeah.
towards kids. I was like, this seems like a really fun marriage, these two things.
Well, and also, like, I think, theater in its best way is everybody contributes in the way they are contributing, and each part is valuable, from, production to the stage to, making scenes to all that other stuff. And maker spaces are kind of that thing where you want to create something, whether you're learning something for the first time as a kid, or you need these tools, and having that, like, creative space to work around other people who are doing creative things of all different angles, from, tech to, like, creating something for the theater. Like, what does a makerspace mean to you as an adult? Because there's a lot of places that is their space.
Yeah. Um, that's a great question. I think, for me, for some context, part of my makerspace experience, I had the privilege of working at the Children's Museum of Pittsburgh, which has a
Mm,
massive makerspace in it called the Make Shop. And it was a really cool chance both to get to make myself and to get to people watch a little bit.
yeah,
Um, and children are so good at imagination and play. You don't really need to give them much. You can just kind of say, you can say, hey, we're pirates now, we're ninjas now, we're cowboys, and we need to do X, Y, and Z. And kids can go, okay, cool, got it. Adults, though, it was very interesting to see cases where they saw the recycled materials, they saw the things on the table for what they were. It was, "Oh, I have a cup and there's a ball of tape inside of it," where it was like, "I know you can do more. I know you can play." And really wanting to investigate, like, where does that come from? Where is that shame around play? Where is that, uh, reluctantness, reluctancy, to do this,
yeah.
especially when it is so easy to do for kids. And so part of it for me with maker spaces was like, here is a community, an opportunity to come together as a community and really rediscover some play. As much as I don't think our show is childish by any means, I do think it is a show that a child could enjoy. As much as we investigate some themes that are a little heavier, it is really rooted in connecting with your sillier side, connecting with your more creative self, and muscles that we might not flex
Yeah, I think,
as
whimsy.
often in our adult.
Oh, breaking up a little bit, but,
Sorry, I
and I
think you might have just.
yeah, it's alright. And I think part of that is, that whimsy, as an adult, you do lose because
Yeah.
there's a lot of groundedness. And I'll admit, like, as somebody who is fundamentally not that in many ways, it's like I have a sign in my studio from a local graffiti artist who this is their tag around our city, around Rochester. It's no fun zone. Uh,
Mm,
and obviously it was more of a, it was more of a like, you know, anarchist kind of political statement more than like talking to me specifically. But as somebody who's
yeah.
always identified as like, I don't like fun, I'm a deep enjoyer of things. I like to
Mm,
dive deep and live in the weeds of things. That separation and how can you be playful? How can you do that? As an adult, I struggle with that unless I'm around a kid. Then I'm happy to
yeah.
jump around and do silly things because it's all about that like moment of connection, interaction. And I love the idea of like you facilitating that and making it in a space that, has that as part of its core.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, one of the things that we've really tried to emphasize as much as possible with the cast. This was a point you made earlier of, oh, nice. I like the sign. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Um, but a point that we made of like people will be where they're at. So as
Yeah.
much as obviously it would be great if people came in and were really willing to give to the imaginative side and really dive into that world and immerse themselves. Um, Reality is we might have people that, for whatever reason, work was stressful, they had a bad day. They are just like, to your point, they are the kind of person that like that is not really their thing. That that's okay too. There is no wrong way to enjoy the show. If you come in and decide like, hey, this isn't really my vibe, but I'm gonna get to work with some tools and hopefully make a cool craft at the end of it, I see that as a success as well. Like it really is. The communal emphasis is really the big thing.
Yeah. And that's I also kind of like the idea, and part of what I enjoy about doing these, especially the fringe ones, is I have limited time to prep.
Yeah.
And it's really just how can we have a good conversation at the moment and learn about somebody else and learn about yourself maybe a little bit while you're doing it. What I'm kind of intrigued about is when did you find yourself comfortable with not knowing what's going to happen when it comes to performing? Do you remember a time where that was like the first time you felt comfortable with the unknown and not being like perfectly prepped
Yeah.
for like a performance?
Um, with this show specifically, we had a little like beta test performance in October just because it is so audience heavy that it was before we came to the Fringe. I wanted to see if it would work at all, if it was a
Yeah.
situation of like, oh, maybe this just works in my head and it just does not work in practice. And I think just before that initial performance, I had some of those like, oh man, what happens after our initial moment? Do they all just kind of stare at us and go, so now what? And I think we had a few moments for sure of a little bit of from that audience thing of like, oh, you're talking to me. Oh,
Yeah.
I need to do something. Oh, shoot. Some of that initial hesitation. But I think generally they got it. There was no one that was like, I can't do this. This is too strange, too weird. And that was really refreshing that it was like, hey, we're inviting people into a space that they are going to be willing to help us. As much as they might be a little apprehensive and a little like not quite sure what's going on, no one's going to be angry or upset. They are going to be willing to entertain us and hopefully give to some of that imaginative, immersive stuff a little bit as
Yeah.
well.
I'm kind of intrigued. So when did theater come into your life? Like, were you doing it as a little kid? Did you start in like middle school? When did theater come into your life, and what was it about it that grabbed you at that time?
Yeah, for me personally, I started doing theater. I'm originally from Southern California, and started doing theater out there when I was in kindergarten.
Mm.
I was in a youth theater program called Riverside Children's Theater, and did that from kindergarten through to 8th grade, continued through high school.
I mean,
Um,
kindergarten's young. Were your parents into that kind of stuff as well and drove you into it, or was it just you
no,
were that
yeah,
kid?
I call it my "I can do that" story a little bit of I have an older sister who was signed up for classes that, the theater program, just with the way that youth theater works, they said, "Hey, there's a waiting list, but if you have a younger brother, we can maybe bump you up on that waiting list." as it turns out, my sister is a very talented technical theater artist. She doesn't do as much onstage performance, but quite likes the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
And I quite liked the onstage stuff, so it worked out very nicely. But initially, what really drew me was uh, funny enough, kind of that audience connection. One of the things that RCT did at one of their shows that was done at like a local high school, middle school students performing it, nothing overwhelmingly spectacular. But I remember Cinderella in like 2004, they had dancers come down into the audience. And that was insane. That was the craziest thing I could have ever seen because just that separation of like, well, wait, I'm here in my seat as an audience member, and you're right there in your period clothing. Hold on, how close are we? How separate are we? Um, and that's always stuck with me. I've always enjoyed theater that blurs that line between audience and actor.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see those, like, influences that there's always that sometimes that little spark, and sometimes it's just, "Oh, I just changed my path partway through." And like, "Oh, I'm gonna try this," and then it just grabs you. And I think that's one of those, like, when you're really learning about yourself and you're honest about what are you really enjoying about this, and sometimes you don't know until you
Yeah.
until you try. What's the thing that's gonna hit you? Um, I'll say is like somebody who like I got into food and drink because I was hunting for something to get into,
Mhm.
and it was this deep, deep well of knowledge that you can have, and you can never know enough. But I started with writing and I hated it. But then you end up finding like, oh, I can talk about it really well. And then you do
Yeah.
that. But you find your own path, and as you learn about yourself, you can be a better version of that thing, that spark. And then you can help others do that too. Do you find that you're also like bringing other people into this side of theater that you like that haven't tried it before?
Yeah. Yeah, as much as I can. I think uh I was very fortunate that I had a lot of improv training in school. Just my uh early years had a teacher that was very big into improv, so really emphasized that. Um, and working with the cast this time around on Doohickey, that has been something of we have a lot of like very talented stage trained actors. But improv was something that was a little bit more not quite. Um, and especially in the way that we're doing it, it was something that's been very fun to kind of like yeah, come to the dark side a little bit. Come to the improv side, the yes and side of the equation. Um, as well as on the flip side, bringing some folks, chatting with folks who are more in the maker spacey side of things that are like, oh, that's interesting. I like theater, but I've never seen it like combined in that way. That's cool.
Yeah. Do you have an improv inspiration? Do you have somebody that, well-known person who lives in that world that is like, this is kind of my compass. Like if I could do what they not what they do, but if I can like, live in performance like they do, is there somebody to you that's like, "Oh, this is my golden compass improviser?"
That's a good. Kind of a cop out. I feel like pretty much anyone from Whose Line, I quite enjoy, as well as just recently. It was a point that I was talking about with my cast quite a bit. I'm sure you're familiar with Dropout,
Oh, of
um,
course.
and all of their content. Of all of their improvisers have obviously, they're not in costume or anything in most cases, and it is very quick little scenes, so it's easy to hop in and out. But they have a style where even if, i- the end goal of the scene is two characters fight or they kiss or whatever, how they get there, you can always see those individual flavors of those actors. And that's something that I think is really lovely about improv is
Yeah.
that even when you take on a character, that character is still you in some way. Same with acting, but really with improv, you have a lot of freedom and a lot of room to really make it put your stamp on that character. Um, and yeah, they've been, I think, a really nice example of something to point to and be like, hey, improv, like really quick, good improv. Um, Another guy, not quite improv, but he's a fringe artist. Just for his in the moment speed, Zach Zucker. of
Mm.
Stunttown. He's a clown act, but his ability with his audience to react incredibly quickly and take what they say and spin it into his act. It's something that um, it takes a lot of skill and a lot of training. I don't think it's something that people can just do, but it is something of like, man, if you had to build like a perfect improviser, quote unquote, that would definitely be uh, something to do there, would be just his speed.
Yeah, and I think that's something I've always I speed is something I've really, it's one of my things I love to see is that, those quick reactions, when I learned how to do some of this stuff was by listening to, like, talk radio from back in the day where it was more comedy focused. And when you heard those quick jumps in and you knew it was live and it couldn't have been practiced, those were the
Mhm.
things that broke me the most, the absurd quick moments. Watching, drop out and seeing some of those people, there is an honesty to the way they perform too. And you never lose them. And to me, like, I mean, I could never be that because I'm more of the straight man in what I do and I jab in. But like
Mhm.
Jason Mantzoukas to me is my
Is
like
my way.
ideal improviser because he is so unbelievably perfectly chaotic,
Yeah.
but never derails not on purpose. Like, it's always purposeful to drive something in a direction, and I adore, him, and then Paul Scheer is more of the straight man, which is like, that's how I like to live in the way I can jump in and be a producer and do those things, and I just love those little picks and grabs, and those are the things that bring me so much joy is watching people who are amazing at their craft.
Yeah.
How do you see yourself now, and where do you wanna end up? Like, do you see yourself growing into more in this? Do you see yourself as, being in this local kind of thing? How do you see yourself as growing into where you wanna be in theater and improvising?
Yeah, absolutely. I specific to doohickey, it's something that in a perfect world where money was no object, it would be awesome if it could go all over the place. Um, One of the things that we've really tried to emphasize as well is the accessibility of it, since it is so recycled material heavy. There aren't any crazy set pieces or props or anything, barring arts and crafts materials. You can get crazier if you want. But for me personally, I think, yeah, for me as a theater artist, I have quite a few interests across the theatrical realm. So I do some stuff in the musical side of things, some stuff in the directing and writing side of things that I'm going to try to continue to foster as much as possible. And then with improv, I think really trying to get there's a local company here in Pittsburgh that I've chatted with about getting some sort of like improv class started up because I think that that's something that there are some classes in and around the city, but I feel like the stage actors and the improv actors have not quite uh, blended together as much. I know there is some crossover, but I think there would be it would be nice to get some more improv incorporated into some more of those traditional acting spaces.
That's awesome. Can you put your social media plugs out there, and then we'll plug the shows?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me personally, my social media is just Cameron Webb backwards. BBEW should bring it right up. That's on all platforms, Instagram, Facebook. Those are the only two I use currently. And then for our show specifically, at Orange Steel Theater Co. on Instagram. The logo is an orange with a blue gear. You can also follow the Pittsburgh Fringe at PGH Fringe on pretty much all of their social media. Check out their website, www.pittsburghfringe.org. Um, Not only is my show Doohickey running there, but also a ton of other brilliant artists, both locally and coming out of town, doing all sorts of really, really cool art. Doohickey runs at Assemble, which just to really quickly shout them out, if you're local to Pittsburgh, Assemble is an awesome communal makerspace. Even if you're not coming for Doohickey, they are amazing. Highly recommend checking Assemble out. And our show runs March 20th, 21st, 26th, and 28th at Assemble. All shows are at 8 p.m. Ticket prices are $12 for general admission, or if you're a student, it's $7.
That's awesome. Cam, thanks so much for joining Just Can't Not. And I'll be down in Pittsburgh for the second weekend, hopefully checking out a bunch of shows. So thanks so much for listening. If you want to check out other shows on the Lunchador Podcast Network, go to lunchador.org, follow us on the socials, and we'll be back with more Just Can't Not. And we'll see you on the Fringe.
This has been a presentation of the Lunchroom Podcast Network.
You're a regular guy. You can record that podcast.